welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. Today's video is sponsored by our Amazon affiliate link, which you'll see in the comment section below. So today I am going to do a video that was requested by Judy, one of my viewers. Thank you, Judy. And a lot of times with these revivals, I have to wait until I get a plant that needs to be revived. So this is a fiddleleaf fig that needs to be revived. Poor little girl is not doing too well, as you can see. This is one that's doing well, to give you an idea of what they should look like, which you probably already know. So my guess on this guy is some sort of a watering issue. I'm not sure yet if she has root rot. I'm going to take her out in a second and see. You will see that I've chosen a pot that's oops, knocked over my worm compost there. A pot that is much smaller than the one she's in. My guess is what happened, and this is very common, when you get plants in the nursery, they put them in the growers put them in too big of a pot. You get what I always talk about with too big of a pot is you will get root rot. This was in too big of a pot to start. This plant was somewhat larger, but not much larger. It was definitely too small for this pot. The soil stayed wet, and the plant got root rot or started to get root rot. Or at least started to react to the fact that it's way too much wet soil in this pot. So I have prepared some soil with the worm compost there. I'm going to put some of that in here as well, and into this soil here, which I'll show you in a second. I have put in some pumice, and this is a ProMix BX soil, which I love, and that is very good because it's got a lot of good nutrients in it. At the same time, it also has very good drainage, but it's also water retentive. So that we're going to be using, and we're going to make it moist first. So we're going to get this soil ready. So another thing to keep in mind is you can go ahead and repot plants that are in distress like this, for sure, to try to save them. And worm compost is a very mild, so that's why I put that in here. The pumice I put in here for good drainage, because generally speaking, you're trying to revive a plant because it's been overwatered and the drainage has not been good. So we've mixed that in. Mixed it in pretty good here. You want to mix really well. I like to pre-moisten soil because when you put it in the pot, if you don't, then later on, and have a little screen in there too. I also use drywall tape. You can use that. So that's in there on the bottom. If you don't water prior, what happens is when you have dry soil, it's going to sink sometimes as much as half. And so it will sink in the pot, and having the plant too low in the pot will also cause root rot symptoms and too wet of soil. So now we're going to take this gal out here. She's lost a lot of leaves. That's a very common indication of too wet of soil. Get her out of here. Okay, this is another thing they do. So you can see here, there's a lot of soil there, right? This is soil without any root in it. Here's her root base. So and this plant was not bought that long ago. So a lot of this started basically from not being potted up in the correct size pot. So the person that was growing this, it's not her fault. The fault was in that they stuck it in a big pot to make it look like a bigger plant so they could sell a bigger plant, which is not okay. So another good reason to just repot your plants as soon as possible after getting them, especially if you suspect they're in too big of a pot. Okay, so she just doesn't have the roots to sustain all of this soil. You can see how much soil is on this little teeny weeny plant. Hopefully, so they did what you're not supposed to do, which is, you can see, potting up way too big of a pot. Should have been put into the same size pot or a pot just a little bit bigger. However, good news is I am not seeing signs of root rot. So I think this plant may have been saved in time, which is a great thing. There's no smell of fungal smell. There's no squishy black roots, which you'll see the roots are tan and whitish. When you take away some of the soil, they're tan. They're not squishy. They smell okay. So I think we're going to be able to save her. I'm going to put her in, trying to get this other soil. And actually, the other soil isn't necessarily bad, but we're going to use the new soil. So put her in here. And this, what we are aiming for, and I have a video on this, and this is one of the things I preach about all the time, what we're aiming for is 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot. This pot is a teeny bit bigger than I would like, not too much though. We will see how she does. If in fact she doesn't start to spring back, I will put her into an even smaller size pot. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and put her in this pot because it's very close to what she needs, and you'll see it's much smaller, or quite a bit smaller, I should say, than the pot that she was in. So she's going to look really good after we plant this. She's going to feel a lot better not being in too big of a pot. I am going to water well with warm water after I finish potting her up late afterwards, since I ran out of water here, but I will be doing that, which you always want to do after repotting a plant. So I will be potting her up. I will be watering her, and then I will let her approach dryness before watering again. I do have a information on that as well, but to review, you want approach dryness on the moisture meter is usually about 4, which is the last point before it turns red when you don't have enough soil. When you don't have enough moisture. So it's the approaching dryness. So it's not dry, it's not bone dry, but it's no longer wet. The first inch or so is dry, sometimes 2 inches depending on how big the plant is. Okay, so here she is, and I believe her name is, I will have to ask, I think part of her name is Matilda, and then she has another part of her name, which I've forgotten right now. But here she is. You can see she's looking already a lot more well-proportioned. As I mentioned, I'll be watering. Then I will put her in a bright location, which fiddleleaf figs love, giving her a lot of attention in that regard, keeping an eye on her, talking to her. And I am going to leave these foliage on right now, but once she starts to get new foliage up here, which hopefully will be in another couple months, then I will take off some of the older foliage unless it falls off on its own. But you, once again, don't want the plant to be too pot heavy and not enough foliage. So that's why I'm going to do that, even though it doesn't look great and you kind of feel like you want to take it off. If there's parts you can cut off parts that are bothering you if you want. She's got a little issue here with this one droopy leaf, so I'll put that up to make her feel better if possible. Not sure, I'll have to do it with a longer stake. But anyway, we will check back in with her again, so hopefully she will start doing really well. And I'm not going to fertilize her. I did put in the worm compost, which is nice and mild. The Pro Mix does have a little bit of fertilizer in it already, so you don't want to over-fertilize a plant that has been stressed like this. You want to give it something mild. And once it starts growing, once it establishes and starts growing, new leaves are coming out. That's when you go ahead and fertilize. But you want to wait at least a month with new leaves before you do that as well. Then you want to start with an organic fertilizer at 1/2 or even 1/4 strength. So very slow and steady. One of the things that got this girl in trouble in the first place was dumping her into a huge size pot and most likely fertilizing her as well, which is what some of this could be, fertilizer burn in addition to being in too big of a pot. Well, thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.